Yeah.
Hopefully, if you're there, you're there. If you get what you get, you're meant to get it. You know what I mean? And we're
Yes.
here now because we're talking about, you know, I think it's like the perfect timing and the perfect person to be talking to about this. But we're just talking about, especially moms. Not that this is restricted to moms, but most of the time people are walking around constantly fulfilling other people's needs. And as long as people need them, they keep their mind busy. It's really easy to be occupied and busy with what other people need
Mm-hmm.
until you reach that point where you've given to everyone. And now what, when the birds are out of the nest, you know, maybe your spouse is gone, or maybe you don't have a mate, and maybe you don't have this big busy job to keep you busy, but this whole time you should have been taking care of your needs and meeting your needs and maybe planning for the time. I guess I know for me with my son is needy, but I know I have not been trying to ignore my needs because I know one day he's not going to need me anymore and I'll be out of practice meeting my own needs. But, you know, there's this change that's going on in the energy in the time where it's just welling up in people, right? Like, what am I supposed to be doing now? Because I've been doing, but maybe doing without direction, or even going in that direction but not really knowing why, or not really knowing what to do next. And this feeling of a void, this makes people exhausted. I know I was exhausted for a week emotionally, and people say, how you doing? I'm like, okay. You know, you got that wince in your voice. You okay? I'm like, my life is good. You know, we got money, now we getting houses done, and traveling, and things are good. But then it was weird. It was just this weirdness. And Terry, you were feeling this weirdness like it's creeped up on you now. Did you want to talk about it? Or Terry, you can hear me?
No, I didn't hear what you were saying.
Oh,
It was everything was.
this is so weird. If
It
you're
was
there.
just like I only got one or two words and it stopped for me.
Oh, okay. Well, we were talking about like the weirdness that creeped up on me, how it creeped up on me, and I was not sure how I feel and where am I going? What am I
Okay.
doing? And then you
Um,
were feeling, you're feeling this, right? This, wow.
yeah, yeah. You know, I've always taken care of things sort of in between when I've had those times. But you know, I'm also feeling because of the changes that are happening around us that it's kind of disconcerting in the sense that I you know what I thought I wanted and what I kind of worked towards 5 years ago is different than the time is now. And you know, we're always projecting into the future and you know, like, oh, what do you want to manifest in your life? Well, I guess what I wanted to manifest 5 years ago, things have, but this the world is different than it was 5 years ago. And so it's the gap. It's the gap. And then yes, it's living in the now and stuff. So it's taking the time to reflect, and it's like, okay, who am I now as compared to who I was a year ago or 5 years ago? What is it that I need to do for myself, or how do I need to mm, wake up in the morning and do, you know, like see things through different eyes than I did before? And what are my needs now than they were before? And gee, last night I was making myself a smoothie of celery juice and cucumber and lime. I could not have seen myself doing that 5 years ago.
Yes.
so so
Evolution.
it's taking what you need and figuring out what you need now.
Yes.
And maybe it is a
So
piece of cake.
today, So today we have the ascending infinite goddess with us. We're so grateful. We were having this conversation before you popped up, but I just kind of felt like, let's just go with that. I know we're going to talk about even the ancestors, but I think that's probably even a part of this as well, because we can get this feeling like we're all alone. And we're never alone. Even though we know it, sometimes it just feels that way. It just feels like we're reaching around in the dark and we don't even know what's in the room with us. It's just dark and it's like, where are we going? But I know you would have something to share positive about this, what you've heard so far.
Yes. Well, just to touch on what Terry was speaking of about finding yourself again, that's something that a lot of our ancestors didn't get the opportunity to do. So living that out now is, or coming into that realization for yourself now, is actually very extremely healing for your ancestral line. Okay. So whether you are aware of it or not, simply taking care of yourself and putting your mental needs and allowing yourself to evolve and change is venerating your ancestors. It's healing those traumatic experiences that a lot of our passed on loved ones wish they could have had. And a lot of them are still lingering around because they didn't have that opportunity of finding, feeling, and loving self. So, as Erica was mentioning, walking around in the dark, feeling like, I'm so alone in this. I don't have, the guidance that I need. I don't have the protection. I don't have the love that I need. It's a lot of the time echoes and sentiments of our passed on loved ones, of our ancestors. A lot of those feelings are not necessarily our own. So if you're walking in a space where you feel you don't have a lot of direction, you don't know what to do, you feel like you are in a dark space, you feel as if no one quite understands, comprehends, loves, and accepts you for who you are, congratulations, you're evolving. You're in a space where you now have the opportunity to focus solely on self. A lot of the times you'll feel that way. We'll go through these feelings, these emotions, so that we can process internally what needs to be done, what needs to be handled. So steps on moving out of that space and evolving to a better place where you now can feel lighter. First things first, start talking. It doesn't matter if you know who you're talking to or not. It doesn't matter if anyone's listening to you physically right there in front of you or not. Just start talking. Spirit is always opening, is always open, rather. Spirit is always welcoming. And the language, the voice, the breath, transmuting your energy from your inside and allowing that prana, the life force, to propel, be transmuted through your throat chakra by bouncing off your vocal cords, off your tonsils, off your voice box, and now being put into the ethers. That is very powerful. So start talking about what makes you feel alone. Start talking about what makes you feel sad. Start talking about the things that you wish you could change. Start speaking it out loud. The more out loud you speak it, it can't just be pent up in thoughts, because your thoughts are not organized. They're all over the place, especially if you are in this dark space. As you speak, you're organizing it. Even if it doesn't seem organized, even if it seems as mumble jumble, you're talking gibberish, it's still being organized in a way. Start talking, get it out there. Next, you want to start finding your joy. Start finding things that make you happy. A lot of times we have this weighed down feeling that's passed on. These traumas are passed down because a lot of our passed on loved ones and ancestors, they dealt in their traumas. They didn't deal in their joy. So when you start to find your joy, when you start to do things that make you happy, it's the same message I've shared before. But when you start to do things that make you happy, it brings you from that dark space. And sometimes you have to force yourself because you don't have the energy, or you may not know what makes you happy because for so long you did things that were not joyous for you. The best way to tap into and realize and remember what it is that makes you happy is by doing things that you like to do as a child. those things that you would do at the top of your lungs with all your might and all your spirit, to the point where your guardians had to tell you to pipe down, quiet down, hush that up, which is why you started pinning it away, which is why you started locking it away. Get back to that space, open it up, and start moving in that every day. Even if you have to force yourself, you're forcing yourself because it's foreign and your ego is telling you that it's useless because you haven't done it for so long. It's not used to it, so it has no value. So it's trying to protect you by telling you don't go do something different. Stay in this space. But the more you do it, the more you overcome it, the heart is strong, and it will get you back into a space where you're feeling better. And then a lot of times individuals may not know, they may feel alone because they don't know their biological family, whether it's because, their line was killed off, or they were adopted, or, the family is on drugs and nobody spoke about anything. There's so many different trauma lines why people don't know their biological family or aren't close to them. If you allow yourself to occupy yourself with looking at your lineage, with technology, you can do this. Get online and research. You don't have to go to Ancestry and Me. You don't have to submit kits off. A lot of stuff you can find for free. If you start pouring yourself into looking at your lineage, therefore you can understand your lineage. And as you start to get ancestors' names and seeing what they went through and how they traveled through, and you start talking to them, getting a feel of them, not saying you have to build an altar and welcome them into the home, especially individuals that you don't know. But once you start opening up and speaking, you'll start developing that stronger channel to now, that although you may be alone in the physical, you're not alone in the spirit, and you can start to hear, you can start to feel that connection. But you have to open up those channels. You have to start to build those muscles. So digging in online, going to your local library, pulling up old indexes, looking up census. There used to be a time when you had to go to the library and flip through the old newspapers and stuff. That's all online, is digital. Start pouring your energy into that and looking and understanding your lineage. That will be so helpful to you not feeling alone anymore, or at least understanding why you feel alone. What were some of the traumas that were passed down from your ancestors that make you now feel what it is that they're feeling? Okay, so that is that for that.
One thing that even if you're not even thinking about ancestors, but if you can look at your own past life, because part of that too, you can be your own ancestor. That when I was observing, what I observed was this life of obligation where there was no choice. So there's a lot of stress, a lot of survival, a lot of obligation and duty. So there was no self-actualization. There was no guardianship of self and choice, like what you're saying, the things that make you happy. And so you're carrying with you the energy through lifetimes and through the lineage of I have no choice, religious upbringings and constraints that are pinning you down. These are what creates part of our self-limiting beliefs, why we feel like we can't be magical and we can't, be abundant, or we can't have self-fulfillment because we have burdens down on us. And I feel like that's what you're expressing. And then it made me, I don't know why, when you did that, it just made me tap into this. I remember I used to hum and I'd be like, hum. And there's these things that we used to do. And you're like, why would you tap like that? Why are you humming like that? Why did I used to do heart song before I knew what heart song was? Because it's in you, and what you've been told, stop that. Don't act like that. Don't do that in public. Don't say that out loud. Don't do that. So we've been chipped away at the person who we really are. or the things that we are carrying have been chipped away and smushed down and squashed inside of us. And yeah, we do need to learn how to connect with our inner child and our joy. And it is foreign to us. It's not really the most easiest thing to do. Like, I'm still walking around barefoot. That's one thing they didn't get beat out of me, but you know what I mean? But then it's like, what about the part where you used to just stand there and spin in a circle outside, right? And when you used to pluck dandelions and blow it and watch it blow, and you'd be like, oh, like you'd probably make a certain noise, and
Yeah.
you would like have this freedom, right? You'd be out there eating certain grass, and you don't know why you're eating that grass. You don't know why but you're doing, and you're connecting with who you really are, because the fullness of who you are isn't right here just sitting today. Your job, your house, your kids, that's not even the fullness of who you are. You bring with you people, places, and things,
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to say more.
Yeah. Well,
You want to say hi out there in Finland to Ramadan. Hey, Ramadan.
hey, I just wanted to say, just to add to that, is that you know, we're talking here, and we all came from different backgrounds, but it's really important to realize that we came from also belief systems. And I don't know, but I grew up at a time where, this is the belief system of the society that I was in. And it was so, we couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. And what's this person going to say? And so there was always those expectations from within the society that we, and the belief system that we grew up in. And looking at my ancestors, at my mother, at my grandmothers, they all had to conform to what was expected within that belief system, or within that society. Like, I'm not going to say it was necessarily a religious one. It was my family were immigrants from the Eastern Europe, so they brought with them those belief systems which were instilled upon them, and it would be like, well, why are we doing this? Well, because this is the way that has always been done. And so as soon as you started to question it, you were and it's like, oh, you can't be too happy, you can't be positive, because
What are you smiling
something
for?
bad, yeah, like, why are you happy? Something bad is going to happen, like, so it was always this, like, you're always looking over your shoulder. And as you've grown, or as I've grown and aged and matured, it's like, oh my gosh, it's breaking free of those barriers that surrounded us. And it's like, you break through one box, but then there's another one and another one. And just because it's always been done in a certain way doesn't mean that I have to follow that. And it's
Right.
part of it, I think, is allowing yourself the permission to say, you know what, my grandmother, God bless her, but she had to live within certain constraints and a certain belief system. And she was widowed, and so what was expected of a widow at that time didn't meet her needs, right? Yeah. And I know other widows, like, oh, well, she was a widow, like, oh my goodness, those people are going in and out of her house. Like, I don't know, maybe she was just company, but the gossip was overwhelming to have to deal with. And observing that as a young person, I realized I didn't want that in my life, but it's still there.
When did you say grandma? I think you know that story too, don't you, Chanel, about grandma, how she used to get the ham, and so the daughter, the little girl, she says, Mom, why do you cut the ham? You cut the top off and the back off, and she cuts it down. And then she says, I don't know, because my mama did it. So that's the daughter and the mother. And then the grandmother says, well, I don't know why I did it, because my mother did it. And they go to great grandma. She said, well, my stove used to be this big and the ham would never fit. And it's like, okay, the daughter has been passed down to do these
Yep.
things. They don't have any idea why they're doing it. But then, too, another thing that's passed down to us, like you said, why are you smiling? Why are you so happy? It's just hard. And it's like when you would talk about joy, as each generation would talk about, well, no, Dad, I don't want to marry this person. No, you're going to do it because of this, and that. And you're not supposed to be happy. And I've been places where I hear people say this too, that life is hard and you're not supposed to be happy. Like it's not about your happiness. And there's people still living today feeling like
Yeah.
that because they're raised in a society where they're being told that you don't get to follow your joy, you don't get to follow your bliss, you just get to follow the rules.
Yeah.
And it's time to like break free of that. This life of obligation, it's very, and I hate social pressure. I hate being told what I'm supposed to act like and what I'm supposed to be like. And then people say this because you're Black, you're supposed to be like this. And, we're all, I don't know, it's a lot. So I'll let now, I just want to tell that grandma story about that halo.
I love
Right.
that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to, or not hard. It can be difficult to break out of different patterns and constructs, especially if it's been going on for so long. And if this is what you're taught, this is your foundation, this is what you should be doing. That's why for such a while it's been difficult for certain people to break out of religious constructs, breaking out of this is what your idea of God is, or celebrating, venerating, connecting with your ancestors or your passed on loved ones. Um, that's something that's been recognized, celebrated, practiced all over the world, everywhere. And just in our country and for our particular community, right? It's been said to, when you connect with your ancestors or you break out of the religious constructs, even though both can cohabitate, it's been told that it's something demonic, that it's weird. And, now it's tearing families apart even more because you're going against the grain. But in other countries where you recognize that they venerate their dead, they celebrate their dead, they connect with their ancestors for wisdom, for growth, for understanding, for love, you see that they flourish, they're prosperous, right? Even if you go into certain businesses of other nationalities, right? You go to a hair store that may be owned by Indians. You go to a Chinese restaurant or an Asian restaurant,
That
or
that
it could
that
be any.
Asian supermarket, they have
Yes,
a shrine in there, or
yes, they
you can
do.
cash your check and you can get your ancestor money and light an
Yeah,
incense in the store. And
yeah,
Asian people save over 30% of their income, and they are
yeah,
doing quite well. You see a lot of Indian people doing quite well in life.
yeah,
Spanish people, Hispanic people in Mexico, they have the Day of the Dead. But the funny thing is, here we are, like we're dealing with a Christian culture that's here now. When you would think that it had to pass through Catholicism, but Catholicism, they do light candles and they do
yeah.
have rosaries and they do talk, like they do convene. And I think it's so interesting. Judaism, they still are dealing with their ancestors. It's not something that we get to see publicly, maybe, or that we talk about. But it's funny because we have this watered down version of Christianity that's passed through all these other people, but we've wiped it all off and like gotten rid of the parts. And then God, I was having this long conversation with my sister last night because I went to a church with a bunch of really nice people who really, really wanted to be good, but they were all doing good, but they were very unhappy because I feel like they were not being fully expressed as people. They were being filtered out, with these social standards or this social pressure to be like everyone and and just do what everyone else was doing, because they'll even get to the point where we might try to help people get away from mental health medications, but it seemed like at church it was like this thing where they were trying to push people completely to just quit. But you were like, well, God can just fix it, and it's like, okay, but I don't feel that way. So I saw a lot of women with postpartum struggling, just things where they were trying to fit into this box where someone told them that medication or whatever and they would also tell us to not visit with your family anymore. If the family didn't like that you went to this particular church, then you should break off from them. And it was just a lot of pressure to separate you, but it wasn't really dealing with it. You know what I mean? It wasn't really allowing people to deal with it in their own way. It was just a lot of people telling you, this is what we do inside this box.
And that's what religion is. It's a box. It's very confining. And it's not just religion that does that, but anytime when you start to put certain constructs and principles and rules and regulations, that's very strict, that's very rigid, that's the beginning phases of control, right? And that's why religion for quite some time has spread, has grown, has been accepted, whether it was out of fear or not, because when we're left to our own devices, we're very open and expressive and creative and do all types of weird and crazy things. But when you're given a rule attached with, or an admonishment attached with fear of consequence, that's when our hive mentality, our oh my goodness, am I doing the wrong thing, our fear of judgment kicks in. And now we want to fit, we want to conform, and we willingly walk into the box. So breaking down the walls and the boxes and barriers of religion, a lot of people now gravitate to, oh, I can be free. Oh, I can accept this. I can do this, and not allow it to be a gradual process, right? The same as with this church, or, where you went to, where they're telling people to get off their medications immediately. Sure, that can help, that can work for some people, but if you don't believe it, if you don't feel it, it's not going to work for you. So getting cut off something drastically and not feeling it anchored in your heart or in your being, you're always going to be thrown off. You're always going to come back because you're going to have a lingering what if, you're going to have a lingering doubt, but you're doing this out of fear of judgment. And once that fear of judgment gets overpowered by the fear of I'm about to die, right? And now your survival instincts kick in, and then you start reverting to other things. That's what can make a lot of people snap. So that's why you need to go gradually through things and work through things and process things and feel the feelings and do the research and then make those changes and get to the root of it. That way it can be successful. When you get to the root of what the issue is and you uproot it and then you plant something else and allow those fresh roots to take heart, now you're firm. Okay. But that's why certain things have never quite always stuck. Even I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, so not in the church, but my mom was a Baptist before she was converted to being a Jehovah's Witness by my father. And, because she was already predisposed to that religion and she saw the changes and it gelled more with what her beliefs are, it stuck to her. But me being born into witness, I was like, this doesn't make sense, right? I always used to question things, ask things, rebel against things, and hence why I am where I am now. But it wasn't in harmony with my belief, with my line of feeling or thought, right? It never took heart or took root in my essence, in my being. So once I was able to do research and see why am I still here, and I realized it was a fear of dying in Armageddon, not being, able to have a paradise, right? Not being rewarded by God, but then realizing I am rewarded every day. Why am I waiting to some hypothetical situation that I'm being told may not even happen in my life cycle, but I've heard my mother talk about it and my grandmother talk about it. Like, come on, right? On my dad's side. I'm like, okay, how much longer are we going to play the carrot on the stick game, right? So when it comes to healing yourself and going through this process and allowing yourself to break out the confines and walls of any type of structure, you have to remove this space of judgment. That's the true thing. That's what everybody is here for. Everyone is here. Every spirit, every being, every entity is here to live human experiences without judgment. And once you release this judgment, judging people for what they think, what they feel, what they experience, what their perspective is, once you can remove this judgment and allow everything to happen and to cohabitate together in peace and harmony, then you've ascended. You've helped raise the vibration. Your heart is now as light as a feather. You can now go with the principles of Mayat and be kind and be honorable and be virtuous. But you can't be those things if you're holding on to judgment. And religion is very heavy with that. And a lot of our ancestors had that. And because it's close in, it's the closest experience that we've had coming in, is the most prominent. But there were time spaces where we had ancestors that did not have this judgment. But fear is such a strong chokehold, it's such a strong energy. If you never overcome that, if you succumb to it and you don't transmute it, it will just keep going and going and going. It's like a piece of fruit that's rotting or has mold. You can try to, peel the layers of it, but if you don't get to the core, if you don't cut it out completely, it's going to keep spreading. It's going to keep going. The disease will keep mutating. And if that piece of fruit has fruits from its rotten seeds or its diseased seed, those other seeds are going to grow with the same thing. So you got to cut it out. You got to uproot it and not allow it to keep reproducing. But the closer it is to the origin, that's how more potent you'll see it become. So tapping back into this space, helping work through certain things, just by being here in yourself or your experience, you chose to go through this. And your ancestors tagged you in. They were like, yes, you are the one to come in at this time and space, to live this experience, to hear this message and do this work, because you are stronger than all of us. Now you can get it done, and we can help change and reveal. And on the flip side, we'll be here in the ethers to help you. You just got to connect with us. You just got to talk to us. You just got to tag us in. Because your ancestors are here to help you. You're not meant to worship them. You're not meant to give them reverence, right? Jesus is a common ancestor, and he's an ascended master. He's the experience of what he went, the story of him, along with the other ascended masters that his story mimics. He's just the ascended master for this region, right? But that information was not meant to be create a religion from. It was meant to just help you to grow, to ascend, to activate. That's what that story is there for, not to cause fear, but to inspire hope. That's why you're told, do not be afraid. But many of us, because of the traumas that we felt, that we see, and the desire to not be held in a certain constructs, won't take the information. I don't want to hear that. Don't tell me nothing about that book. And I was a person like that too. But there's information in everything. There's knowledge in everything. And when you take the message for what applies to you and dismiss the rest, that is how you evolve, and that is how you grow.
That's one of the kids.
Right. You hear my door? No, that's actually my cat. I'm just going to close it real quick. Oh, never mind.
That cat has a very serious door knock game. I mean, I'm like really surprised at how good he is at knocking on the door and pushing stuff open.
Yes.
And then
I have one of those long handles, so she'll jump and push. She'll jump up and pull on it. But yeah.
Are amazing. There was I read this book, the 78 degrees of wisdom. And what you said, it struck on like the Hierophant card, and I would love for you to speak on that too. But it says a society builds its intellectual tradition over hundreds of years. So we set in tradition. Those who accept the tradition receive from it a standard by which to judge new ideas and information. Those who reject it find their own way can easily get lost in superficial ideas. So in the aspect of them rejecting it, They might come up with what they think is, this is the new answer. This is the new thing that we need to do. And so there are many people who have given up the dogma forced on them as children, and they fall into some new dogma, a cult or some extremist political group, or something else that's just as rigid but more shallow. Having rejected tradition, they have not really rejected the Hierophant. They have not accepted the responsibility of truly finding their own way. Like, I guess a lot of times that makes me think about these new liberal ideas, which I'm not like anti whatever, but there's just some ideas that are being put out, like, we're getting rid of this, so we're just going to put this in place, but it's more rigid, less. And so here where you're trying to get away from, because you feel like, oh, religion is too oppressive. But even in spirituality, among spirituality, as soon as someone writes a book and people get really turned on by the book, and they're like, well, so-and-so says this and so-and-so says that, and then now they try to go out and enforce whatever the new idea is on other people. And if you don't accept this, then you're also going to hell. It's still this new this new way of telling people that they're going to hell for not doing what you believe right now. And so I don't know if you had anything about that, or even the Hierophant card.
Yeah.
And then there's also the Tower card, because that's another card about tradition being broken, right?
Yep. So it's funny that you're mentioning this, because I literally, right before, it's kind of why I was a little bit late, I was talking to my husband about this same thing, about Christianity and how it's evolving and changing. Like I said, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and the last couple of months, I've been getting messages from those that I still know that are in the religion, my mom, some old friends, whatever. And they're like, we have completely evolved and changed. The sisters, right, women can now wear pants, and we've changed our stance on this fellowshipping, and we're grooving. We are evolving with the time. So come back and come holla at us here in religion, right? And it's the same thing with Christianity and other religions. As they start to see things shifting and changing, they had to catch up with the times, because the old constructs are falling away. Those constructs were built in the age of Piscean, where everything was, I believe, we can be struck, we can be rigid, we can give you a little bit of hoopla, so you can be a little dreamy and have a little bit of hope, but we're mostly going to give you this fear. But now with the age of technology, we're in the I know, we're in the space of knowledge. There's a lot of people that are rejecting the rigid, I don't want to be, I don't want to live this life because I see where it got you. I know better, so I'm going to do something else. And they jump from that, not so much F what you're talking about, but I don't want that. I'm going to go do something else, but I'm still going to stay in the same constructs, because I was raised with this ideal and this foundation. And again, they didn't get to the root of why it is that they accepted it. So now they'll jump into a cult, or they'll jump into a spiritual community. And let me not quote it. It is a spiritual community, right? These cults are also spiritual communities. Their spirit is just in another form, right? It may not resonate with your spirit, but it sure as hell resonated with others, right? So they're jumping from these different constructs that still resemble what they had from their foundation, but with a little bit more sprinkles, a little bit more, ideals that sit better on their stomach. It follows a different set of principles and a different set of rules, but it's still putting them in a space of judgment, because it's still rigid. It's still harsh. You still have to follow these things. The only laws that you should be following are the universal laws. These laws are true no matter where you go, no matter what country you go to, no matter what planet you go to. These universal laws are there. The law of gender, the law of action, the law of reciprocation, reciprocity. I know I just butchered that, right? The law of rhythm, the law of attraction. It's all there, right? those laws are universal and they stay in space, all in play all the time. Our ancestors were also governed by them. It doesn't matter where you go. Everyone, everything, every light spiritual being is governed by these things. So that's the only laws that you should be living by. Anything else, these rules, these regulations, these constructs, these guidelines, these strong guidelines, right? What were they mandates, these mandates that they put out? This is all man-made things, but it plays on the human psyche of, I don't have to take responsibility, because for so long that's what was put into the foundations. And when you jump from one thing to another without getting to the root of it, you always have that doubt, that fear, that what if. You're always unsure, you're always uncertain, you're not handling that shadow aspect, so you can always be ruled and dominated. Once you tackle that shadow and you see, what is it that I'm afraid of? What is it that I feel that I should be doing? You know, why should I be following someone else's rules and guidelines instead of tapping into my heart space? Once you tackle that, you now will live your life according to these divine harmonies and principles and be elevated, be free. But people aren't doing that because they're not taught that. They just know they want to be free. They don't want to go through what their parents went through. So someone comes and presents something wonderful and shiny. It feels familiar. It's different, but it feels familiar. So they go to it. That's what's happening day in and day out.
It's funny because I watched this show called Cuckoo, and it's this guy, I think he's in America, and he's going to Britain to go live with his girlfriend. So he was raised in a commune, which was basically a cult. And then he got to the airport and he met the Krishnas, and then he decided, I'm a Krishna. I joined the Krishnas. Then when he got over to Europe, he went ahead and joined a multi-level marketing group. And the thing was, people who are raised in cults or addicted to cults, they're just addicted to cults. And so anything that simulates that familiar environment of, we're together, we support each other, and you can see it even if it comes to multi-level marketing companies, that it becomes, and we're going to be each other's family, and we're going to stand, and like, just cult behavior is that, it's addictive. So I think a lot of people too don't really realize religious behavior, cult behavior, whatever is moved into the space of spirituality. It isn't supposed to be that way, but it becomes that way.
Yep.
I just thought it was
just and they just
he pointed it out, and I was like, I bounced from cult to cult, like
right. So what's going to start happening? People are going to start taking this newfound knowledge, right? This spiritual knowledge that is readily available everywhere. They're going to remember, oh, I am a spiritual being, have a human experience. Let me show you how to be a spiritual being. Listen, this is not what was happening. Jesus Christ wasn't some white-haired white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes. He was black with woolen hair. Look, I can show you the proof. And this is what we're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be living by his principles. And everyone that wants that familiar foundation that their mama felt, their grandmama felt, their great-great-grandmama felt, all of that, because it's not just through religion. Religion was adapted from somewhere else. There's a lot of practices, that singing, that humming, the chanting, all of that, the Holy Spirit, right? That is taken from spirituality. So that's why it's able to be gravitated and accepted, right? It morphed through time. So now with this new knowledge that people have gathered from starting from 2012, and you saw it explode in 2020, and you saw it evolve a little bit more in 2022 because things are speeding up. Now what you're going to start seeing is that these spiritual leaders, when they start to experience some of the forecast that was given in Revelations, when you start to see these wars rampant, more in your face, not just on TV, when you start to see famines, when you start to see people homeless, when you start to see people losing their livelihood.
It's the end.
Yeah, it's the end. And they're going to be scared, and they're going to go back to this religious construct, or they're going to take this newfound information, exactly, and it's going to morph and change. And now it's going to be, oh, women can be preachers, and, you don't have to pay your tithes to the church so that, we have these jets and these things. Everybody can manifest money, and this is how we give back to God. They're going to come with that. and bring people into that construct that way. And you'll see a change and a morph in how religion, and I'm just saying Christianity because that's the majority of what our ancestors, elders, passed on, loved ones accepted. But of course, this goes for everything, right? We're just talking about the Abrahamic Christian, but it goes for everything: Baptists, Scientologists, Mormons, Israelites, Muslims, all of that. It goes for everybody in the religion. It's just going to keep changing and morphing and adapting under a same umbrella, but something different because of the familiarity. Until everyone faces their traumas and their shadows, you're just going to see a repetition, an evolved repetition storyline. That's all. It's an evolved repetition storyline until the shadow is addressed, until traumas are healed, until you start honoring and revering and paying off debt, burning some ancestor money, which I'm going to do for everyone here today, until you start paying those things down, remembering your ancestors, calling their name, allowing them to transition and get from this earthly plane, because they're stuck in a loop and a cycle, because a lot of their descendants have forgotten them, have allowed their resting place to be desecrated because they feel vengeance hasn't been served, anything like that. It's just going to keep repeating and going around and around. So just acknowledging, okay, saying this is different. I'm not staying in this square. I'm not staying in this construct, right? I'm not moving from religion to dogma to a spiritual guru. Now I have to follow you. No, that's why I say I'm just a guide. I'm just a guide. I'm just guiding you, right? Terry is just the guide. Erica is just the guide. We're here just sharing our experiences to allow you to break free from things, you know?
And so I learned a lot from you because of that. That's why I say you're one of my what do you say?
Spiritual guides.
You were one of my guides in the beginning, because I don't know if I ever did any of that before, like light candles for my ancestors and things like that, because I guess what you just taught me a lot. I just know that I sat plenty of time in front of the candles and I talk, sit with my son, and I look at the pictures and I might tell him a story. And then I just would thank them for my lifetime, things that we could be a part of together.
Yeah.
How you loved me, how you complimented me, how you did these things for me. And I can't help but feel that I've traveled with them before, but that maybe the reason even I was doted on as a child by certain people was because in this time now, I'm the one that honors them. Like there's some type of reciprocation or cycle that they were like, I know she's going to be the one. I remember, I was to tell you this and then move on to what you said, but I remember a time when my grandma, when she was becoming senile, she was upstairs and she must have creeped in and she heard us talking about something. And for some reason, she thought we were talking about her and that we were going to give her some kind of pill. Like she really got to the point where she thought someone was going to try to kill her. So she had locked herself in the room and she said, only let Erica in because I know Erica's going to tell me the truth. And I was like, wow. And she had a scissor. She was, I don't know what she was really going to do, but I had to explain to her. But then I was thinking, even in these lines, like she trusted me, but I think it's because either my future self or my past self, like that I was able to connect with her and honor her on this other level where she knew she could trust me. But I don't know where you got your connection to understand the ancestors, but I guess we've been laying some foundation on it. But what would you say, because you're about to show us about ancestor money, I'll just allow you to talk about when you first got connected and when you first understood, and any advice you had for us.
Okay, so I always had an affinity for death, and I always wanted to know about my elders. I always hung around my elders, not just in my family, but just in general. I always been told I have an old soul. So like the people who were 60, 70, 80, I was hanging with them a lot. And as I grew more in my spiritual awareness, recognizing the connection that I had with people that transitioned, and then wanting to learn more about, well, why was this ancestor this, right? My mom's mother was Cuban Jamaican, and she stayed in Jamaica. Well, she was Cuban and she stayed in Jamaica. And she, towards the end of her life, was going through dementia, Alzheimer's, senile, things of that nature. And I was always intrigued by her story, and I was always asked questions, just tell me about more about her before she got to this space. And I would always wonder, who is she speaking with? Because she would revert back to Spanish. She, wasn't really on the English too much. And I was always curious. So when I grew on my spiritual path, and I started learning about connecting with past on loved ones, how to open up my channel to be a medium. And I was like, okay, this is really, really cool. How do I do more? And I started learning about Asian culture and how they revered their ancestors, and then more about Native Americans, how they had their rituals and their ceremony. And that always intrigued me. And then just through meditation, asking spirit to show me, guide me, I started picking up certain books, reading about books, and it was answering questions, finding videos on YouTube, connecting with individuals who still had close ceremonial practices. That's what got me to a space of, oh, okay, this is what I should be doing. This is how I should be moving, right? Everyone's experience is different based off your culture, what your ancestors need, and so on. So learning how to strengthen my ties with them, because my parents, my dad wasn't really around. Although I was always around his family, he wasn't around. And my mom's family was all in Jamaica, and they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, so we couldn't hang around them. My dad's family was, so that's why I was around them a lot. So it was kind of crazy growing up in that dynamic, and just getting stories from them and asking about the pilgrimage and the migration of our family. How did this happen? How did this work? How did this go? So that's what got me on my path. But learning about ancestor money, learning how to construct an altar, a lot of that came from books and, like I said, YouTube videos, connecting with those that I felt I can trust. Not one of those mainstream, but an elder. I went to an elder. I talk about my spiritual mom often, a Celtic spiritualist. I learned a lot from her as well. And she was very much in touch with is very much in touch with her elders and ancestors, has a lot of family heirlooms and things of that nature. So that is what got me to a space where, okay, I can be more comfortable in connection. And when I constructed my ancestor altar in my home and started building that connection with them in that space, it really opened up the floodgates. And then I started offering different services for clients and things of that nature. But that's how it evolves. Again, back to my childhood, even though no one was speaking about it because that was very taboo in the Jehovah's Witness world, right? You can't talk about those things. But I always had an affinity for it. It always was stuck. It was always with me. It was part of my foundation. And then I just allowed that to grow and flourish as I became an adult. You're muted.
I had a really religious friend, and she said that her mother came to speak to her. And her mother was already passed. Her mother came to speak to her, and she said, I told her to get back on in her own space and not to speak to me. And it blew my mind, because I was thinking, who do you think your mother is now? Like, did your mother turn into Satan? I mean, I knew that they didn't really get along well in this plane. Mm-hmm. But now, because to my understanding, like, now your mother's moved on to another plane. She has all her missing parts back, or, she's not the same character as she was in the Avatar. She's a different, she's actually a more equipped being that could actually answer questions and move through spaces and actually help you.
Yeah.
But what where I don't know what you can glean from that. It's just
Well,
it just blew
if
me
they,
away.
yeah, if they one very religious, so they're in the judgment zone and they're in a box, right? I should not be talking to you. You're wicked. You're a demon. You're an aspiration. You're not really my mom. There could be all types of thoughts that was coming through.
Wow.
Especially if she didn't have a good relationship in the physical. Now it's, why would you be coming to visit me and try to give me good advice? Get away from me, Satan, right? That type of energy.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So she's still dealing in her human aspect because she doesn't have an expansive arena to play in the spirit to recognize, okay, my mother has transformed, has evolved. And if she's saying something to me in righteousness, can I open my heart to see how it makes me feel instead of just rejecting it immediately? But religion won't teach you that, right? And if you're very shallow on the spirituality aspect, you won't learn that either. You could be afraid. You could also be deceived because there are some spirits that will take forms of people that you're familiar with and know to try to deceive you. And that's why you have to use discernment in your heart to see where it comes from there. But like I said, there's a lot of our passed on loved ones because they have unresolved issues, because they may have had shitty relationships with their children or parents. They could have been killed in a manner that was very traumatizing. They could have went out in a way that wasn't wasn't contracted. And now they're in a space of perpetual confusion, right? They're still stuck reliving that same moment. Their spirit hasn't descended. And if they're coming to try to make right, and the individual they're trying to make it right with is not open to receive, if it's never handled, if it's never done, if it's never resolved in a lifetime, that spirit is still walking around. That's why you still have people that are like, oh, this place is haunted, or, especially these cemeteries that are right smack dab in the middle of the neighborhood. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Right across the street.
Yeah, that's insane. All right. All those homes, all those houses have all types of things that I can guarantee you. Right. They have all types of things, especially if they have decorations, the little wreaths on their door or anything of that nature, that little portal to come on in spirit. Right. That's a signal. That's what those wreaths are. And so if you have resentment still pent up, holding you down, weighing you down, anchoring you in, and the spirit visits you either in the waking world or you're dreaming or you're in meditation, use your heart to discern. Even if you are asleep, even if you are in meditation, you can still use your heart. Your heart is still available to you and say, okay, is this person real? Right? Or not, no, wrong word. I'm sorry. Is this person authentic? Is this spirit rather authentic and genuine? Is it a familiar? How does it feel to me? Is it righteous? Is it benevolent? Because that spirit is trying to go. They're trying to move. If they're have the wherewithal to know, okay, I'm in this state, I need to let go of this. But if you're trying to come to a person who is still stuck on, no, my daddy was never there for me, I don't care if he died 50 years ago, right? And don't want to at least hear the story of what happened, I mean, you're going to be one of those spirits who's walking right back around, or you right back in rotation. You're right back here. And that's happening. That's happened a lot too. Some spirits, when they do transition from this physical body and they're not stuck or tethered here to their earthly life, and they go back into the rotation because they didn't quite fulfill what it is they need to fulfill, or they're trapped because of certain karmic cycles they keep repeating. So they just keep getting thrown back in the loop. Now they're just repeating the same destructive and debaucherous behavior that got them stuck in the time loop before. So there's so many different circumstances of why people, should revere, because you could have a spirit of a great grandparent that had war trauma, and they're coming in your child, and now your child is just angry all the time and they always want war. They're war ready. And it's because they have this spark of the spirit of this great that never reprised, or they never reprieved themselves from this energy. And now they're just going through the same cycle. They're not evolving. They're not ascending. But if you revere this great great grand and help clear some of their debt, help give them some absolution. You let them know they're not forgotten. You let them know they can let go of some of this fight. You ask the angels to help them transition. You ask Anubis to help guide them through. You pour the libations to help their spirit grow and ascend and give them a little bit more peace. Now that spark that is incarnated in this child will become lighter and you won't feel that warring energy. Sometimes that's why you have people that go through these mental splits where they have schizophrenia or multiple personalities, right? You also have spirit fragments where you have people living multiple lives in one body. Like it's crazy. It's not crazy, but it goes deep. It goes deep. It goes deep. That's why you can't just always look at things on the surface, right? Everything is happening simultaneously. Everything, the past, the present, the future is all happening right now in this moment. And you can do certain things to help clear out and relieve some of this past energy, because time is timeless. There is no time construct or frame.
I don't know, Terry, did you have any questions? Because
no, I'm just thinking about just honoring of the ancestors and stuff. The religion that I grew up on was an Eastern Orthodox religion. So we would actually go to the cemetery and there would be a church service, and we all had these books that had all of our ancestors who passed on. And so there was always a specific service that was done. Everybody's name was brought up, right? And then we would go to the cemetery and the priest would actually, I think it must have been some form of an exorcism, in the sense that it was releasing the spirit to go back to the divine. And so it was always that very interesting feeling, because you know that you were walking in reverence when you did this. It was always a very special occasion, and it's always done just after Easter, right? Because of the resurrection, the belief system. So it's like I said, it's an Eastern Orthodox, so their religious doctrine is different than we would see, here. But it was always and then I lived in Asia for several years, but it was that recognition that what I grew up with and how the Asians were doing it wasn't that different.
No.
So I believe that there is that undercurrent that we as humanity know, and we have different ways of doing it, but it's part of our being to recognize and to honor those people and to help them to move on to past the belief systems, and that's part of it. Is there's a belief system that holds them down, and we want them to transcend that and move on beyond that, so that they can release whatever it is. And so those prayers, those ways of honoring them, is also helping them to release whatever bound them to this realm, right? So there's that saying that we are the ones that our ancestors were waiting for. And so by us doing that, we are helping to release those ancestral lineages from all of the constraints that were put upon them, and all of those belief systems that were more condescending, to holding them back. And so because we have this knowledge, we can help to release a lot of those ancestral lines that are bound to belief systems.
Yeah, and they agree. You hear the roosters going crazy? They agree. Yeah. So before yeah. So as I mentioned, what I wanted to do before we close out, because you got to close out soon. I did want to burn some ancestor money. I just wanted to give a little brief synopsis of that, and then I did bring my ancestor deck. So I'm going to provide a brief reading for anyone who's hearing this message. But ancestor money, as you let me hold up the whole deck. So it's ancestor money should look like this. It should have this character on here, the Jade Emperor. Okay, I know they have some ancestor money that has past presidents, but we don't want to burn those dominations. The energy with those characters are not beneficial for our lineage anyway. The Jade Emperor is the entity that is over this realm, and he will help ensure that it gets to lineage. He holds the book, he knows the bloodlines, he'll be on it, okay, or this spirit will be on it. So as I burn this ancestor money, I am going to make a statement, which you can feel free to do as well. You can get ancestor money from any Chinese store, any Asian store. Usually they have them in the Asian supermarkets. If not, Amazon does have it. Just make sure it has a Jade Emperor and that it's made of Joss paper. And what this does, because in I saw the comment with Buddhism and even with Orthodox or Baptist, even for myself, providing offerings for your ancestors, what we may call libations, pouring water out, right, at a tree, or, for the niggas in the hood, they'd be like, this for my homies, right? Pouring out before you take a drink. That's libations as well, right? Like I said, there's a lot of
things that people do, they don't even know.
And they don't even know. A lot of practices we have, we don't even know. So providing the libation for our ancestors, that's appeasing their spirit, right? Providing food, although they're not going to eat it, it's just the spirit. Remember, everything is energy. So it's the energy of the food that they are consuming. All right. Once this drink is provided or this food is provided, you do not want to consume it. You want to throw it away. Okay. Or just leave it in the earth and let the earth take it back, right? The animals will come and grab it. The ants will break it down, whatever the case may be. But you do not want to consume anything that you provide for your ancestors. No wine, no water, no food. If you provide cigarettes, nothing of that nature. If it's for them, it's for them. Ancestor money can be burned at any time, and you don't need to know your ancestors' names. If you do know their names, you can burn specifically for them, but I like to do a broad spectrum of just generations. So I'm going to go ahead and start lighting it now, and then I'm going to pull the message as they finish to burn out. But you just want to start the burn. Make sure you have a burn safe dish. You don't want to hold it, or you can just put it out directly into the grass. That's fine as well. But as it burns, we just want to thank the Jade Emperor. So thank you, Jade Emperor, for receiving this ancestral offering on behalf of all those gathered here, the maternal and paternal past generations, for at least the past 10 generations. Thank you, Jade Emperor, for receiving this ancestral offering on their behalf. May it clear any debt incurred by them, and may it be received by them wherever they are and wherever they may be going. Oh, that's pretty quick. Thank you, Jade Emperor, for receiving this ancestral offering on behalf of the past 10 generations of ancestors, both known and unknown, on both the maternal and paternal side, for all those hearing this message. May it clear any debt incurred by them, and may it be received by them wherever they are and wherever they may be going. And then you just want to let it burn out. Let it clear. Oh, the ash is flying everywhere. Okay, that's fine. You want to let it burn completely. If it happens to go out, sometimes that happens and it's not completely burned, you want to just go ahead and relight it and let it burn. Okay, beautiful. So let's go ahead and pull a quick message from our common ancestors, from all those who will hear this message. Just a message from our common benevolent ancestors, those that have a message, highest vibration, for those who will hear. What do you want to share with the collective? Okay, if one of my cards flew, I'll grab it in a minute. That's a really good burn. And I have high domination, so that's a lot of energy and clear. I've seen the presence. There's different colors, fire as well. So of course, you have blue fire, red fire, orange fire, green fire. The green, the blue shows the presence of the Jade Emperor as he receives. And then depending how it burns and how much smoke, it's a lot of clearing. Good sign. All right. So let's see what the ancestors want to share. All right. First card out, Star Ancestor. Follow the voice of your soul. It's such a sunny day, and I don't know, I guess my overhead makes it really dark, so I'm sorry about that. The Star Ancestor, follow the voice of your soul. Next, Protection Guardian, drop your shields. And Animal Guardian, trust your instincts. Okay. Very good. All right, so Star Ancestor, following the voice of your soul, along with these guardians, we are being protected. We are being guarded. We are being watched over. There's so much, and that's the smoke you see. That's your ancestors letting you know that they are here. They're working through you and with you to help you grow. You got to listen to yourself. If you are being told to move on past traditions, please do so. If you're being felt and compelled to carry on traditions or maybe pick up traditions that were lost, please do so. Follow the voice of your soul. Follow your happiness. Follow your bliss. Your soul is what's guiding you. And as your ancestors are leading you, stop being so afraid. That's why they're saying it's okay. You can drop your shields. You can let yourself flourish, because they're making sure that anything that could come to harm you, they're thwarting it, right? They're filtering it for you if you just allow them to work with you. So how does that happen? You got to get the invitation. Not everybody has to go create an altar, because I know everyone's not going to have the space to do so. My spiritual mother told me that you can keep an altar in a shoebox if you need to be, right? If you need to be on the down low, get a shoebox that is specifically for your ancestors. Get a white candle. I have one burning here, actually. Get a white candle. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It can be from the Dollar Tree. Get a cup, a glass rather, that you're going to use only for your ancestors. To keep a bottle of water. Get a picture or figurine. You could get a little angel, or a plaque of a red cardinal. You can get a seashell if your ancestors lived by the water, anything of that nature, something that can represent them in the event that you don't have a picture or memorabilia or Bible, right, of only your ancestors, no living loved ones. But keep that in the shoebox, and then whenever you want to connect with them or you want to pay reverence, go ahead and just pull those items out from your shoebox. Go sit by a window, go outside by a tree, right? You can go to a park and go by a tree, light everything up, pour your water in the glass, and speak to your ancestors right then and there, right? Build that connection, but drop your shield. Stop being so afraid. Stop being so uncertain. Allow yourself to flourish and trust your instincts. A lot of us right now are not in a space of being primal, of trusting our instincts. We're going against our instincts. We're going against our first mind. Your ancestors are saying, don't do that. You got to believe in yourself. And a lot of you are returning ancestors, returning past on loved ones who are going through experiences to help yourself elevate. And because you are an ancestor, you are maybe not an old soul. You may be a mature soul. Where you've had some of this experience, you didn't quite get it, and you're thrown back into the loop, what I was speaking about before. But because you have that experience now, that's why you got to follow the voice of your soul, trust your instincts, and stop being so afraid to follow through with that, because you have a remembrance Okay, you're not just hearing this voice. It's not just from God. It's not just from the divine. It's your own soul remembering things that you've been through. That's like, oh, this is why I'm supposed to do this. That's why some of you have natural knacks for things. You just naturally know things, right? My husband can look at something and just naturally know it. He knew about the city of Chicago and never visited there before, right? He just had a natural knowing. So trust that, follow through with that. You will be successful. You can trust it blindly. Okay. And once you do so, once you follow the voice of your soul, drop your shields by not being afraid and start trusting your instincts, the blessings that you're going to receive is earth magic, nature, rituals, and charms. So you'll be blessed by having some different earth magic beings come to your assistance, to your aid, fairy, elves, godmothers, different herbs. There will be different rituals that come through to you. There'll be different charms, gems, crystals that are coming into your purview, into your awareness, just because of the work and the elevation that you're coming into. So definitely beautiful blessings. You can trust that. Make sure some of you as well are getting out into nature more. Some of you are herbologists. Some of you are kitchen witches, right? Where you use a lot of herb or you put a lot of love into your food and healing, right? A lot of supplements, a lot of things with earth, grounding. Some of you may hug trees. Some of you may want to live in a forest one day. You're like, I just want to live in a tree house, right? That's a good thing to be, or to have, or to desire. But it's good for you because getting out in nature, being in tune with that, that also sharpens your instincts, that animal-like behavior, those animal-like instances to help you know when to go to the right place, know when to pivot, know when to backtrack, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So that is that. Thank you for allowing me to share that message and perform that ritual, provide that clearing of that debt. It's still, the ancestor money is still kind of crackling, but it's all burned up. Everything is all ash. It burned through with one burn. That's really, really good. That's really good. So receive the blessings, believe in this magic, or know this magic is working on your behalf, and be receptive to it. Because a lot of us, we have hardened hearts because of the trauma that we've been passed on and have accepted in our life.
Yeah, we want to get rid of the Hierophant.
Yeah.
Just a quick question for you. How much money do you burn?
Well, I just burned a lot. That was a lot. But it's up to you. You can burn one piece. The dominations normally start, I've seen, the lowest I've ever seen was like 5,000. But what I just burnt was actually 100 million. So yeah, every one of those papers were 100 million in domination. So you can burn just one for a specific person. If you want to go through generations, you can burn 3 or 4 at a time, whatever your heart desires. Normally they come in stacks. So but I wanted to burn a lot because I know there's a lot of people that will be watching this, the energy.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And your messages were amazing. So thank you very much for sharing all of this with us.
I'm going to type.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to type your Cash App. Where am I? Okay, $, and then infinite now. Oh, that's easy.
Yes.
$sign and infinite now. So if anybody wants to send, the laws of the universe are very key when you give to others, and then others can give back to you. So I put that up there for people who want to make donations, because I'm gonna send a donation because you hooked me up, because I haven't been burning my money for a while. And then also too, they got the other one that's just Josh paper, but then it has like a gold lining on it.
Yes,
I have that one too.
That is good for your intentions directly. It won't be a domination for ancestor money, but if you that's also known as wish paper. But if you write your intentions, things that you desire to receive or even to release, you can write on that paper, burn it, and it's currency. Yeah.
Okay, so there's 2 kinds of paper. Yeah, I've seen the other one too, and I think we've done both. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the donation. This woman mom, mother, wife, busy teacher has to go. So we'll let you go. And if it moves you to send anything, please go ahead, do. And then just please share this, like it, subscribe, but also give us some comments and let us know what your thoughts were. We had Debbie speaking, and she said she just loved it, and thank you. And Gladys, it's so cool that we're being able to see you again, Gladys. And she said, thank you. I know it's working, and everybody's very much resonating with the message, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, Chanel.
Yes, I appreciate you and your audience. Thank you, as always, for allowing me to be here on your platform to connect. Those who are meant to hear will hear and move and receive the information and integrate it to make the changes, because being an information whore is not beneficial, right? We gotta share, we gotta apply it and share it, right? So everything, it doesn't matter if it's the first time you're hearing this or if you've heard it a gajillion times before. Information is always meant to be moving. It's always in rotation. Okay, so that is that, divine beings. Thank you so much for allowing me to connect with you. I look forward to seeing you again, Cosmic Mama and Terry. I appreciate your energy so much, right? Allow me to move in a different space. And until we connect again, stay alert, stay aware, and live in love. Peace.
All right. JB Light was up on the screen. What? See you soon, Jonathan.
Yep.
Yeah, he said much less, so we'll end it.